This is the Texas Land Guys podcast, hosted by brothers Tim Dosch and Tom Dosch. With their partners David Marshall and Trip Rich, they have built DMRE, the leading land brokerage in Texas. With decades of experience brokering deals between landowners and real estate developers, they take you inside the deals that move the market.
All right, well, welcome to another episode of the Texas Land Guys podcast. Today, I've got Trey McGhin with me here in the Dallas office. Trey joined DMRE over 5 years ago and runs the Dallas market with me. And it's been a lot of fun to get to work with you, Trey, get to know you a lot better through the ups and downs of the market. So welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here and just excited to have the conversation. Obviously, we spend a lot of time talking and strategizing, but cool to do it in this setting.
Yeah, I think that when you work together as closely as we do, we talk about it a lot. You spend more time with everyone at the office than you do with your family. So
Yeah.
It's good when you enjoy being together.
Yeah.
But excited to introduce our audience to Trey. He, like I said, runs the office here in Dallas. He's one of our top brokers across the company, and just been a huge blessing for us as a firm. And it was made partner here recently, and so it's just exciting, Trey, to get to talk a little bit about where you've come from and all that's happened in the last couple of years.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's pretty cool when we sit here today and think about just where we've come. Obviously, the office now, we're at 17 people here in our Dallas office, which is really incredible. Thinking back on where we started, we're having our best first quarter ever. So there's a lot to really be excited about, which I think is just a huge blessing, but is a testament to our process and how we work and just the vision that you and I have had as we continue to build the office.
Yeah, I mean, when you take snapshots in time, I think it's hard to believe a few years ago when we were slugging it out during COVID that we were going to be where we are today and have the team that we have today. So maybe let's go back to and just give our audience a little bit more background on you and where you came from, where you grew up in the business, and maybe even just start with the opposite end of the spectrum, which was COVID when you started. So why don't you start there with 2019 and a market that we had no idea was coming in early 2020.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously came on board to DMRE in 2019 in the fall. I guess taking it one step further just as to how we got to me being at DMRE, which I always think is a really cool story. So I'm fortunate enough that my brother-in-law and Tim Dosch are very close. And over the years, Jared, my brother-in-law, kept saying, you got to talk to Tim. You got to talk to Tim. Like, they're growing this business. It's an incredible deal that they're doing. They're doing a lot of great deals and have the mindset of growing across the state. And, he was really the one that just kept pushing me. And so I had the opportunity to meet Tim Dosch, just with everyone having issues during Hurricane Harvey. My family down there, they had trouble with their house flooding. And so I went down to help them and ended up sleeping on Tim's couch, and our whole family was staying there. And then the next day, Jared, Tim, and I, we got in kayaks and went and kayaked to my family's house and helped them get some really personal stuff out of there and just checked out what the damage was. And that was the first time that I really got to meet Tim. And it wasn't even in a sense of business. It was just in a sense of, trying to help out family, which was a really interesting experience. And so fast forward, my first 5 years of my career was at Marcus Millichap on the investment sales side, selling apartments. And so, at the end of my 5 years there, I was really sure that I was ready to move on. I just found that selling BNC apartments was not something that I was really passionate about. I didn't enjoy where I was at in the business. And so then comes Jared again telling me, if you're thinking about making a change, like, you have got to talk to Tim. I've been telling you this for years, but you have got to talk to Tim. And so I took him up on the opportunity, had the conversation with Tim, and then Tim obviously introduced me to you. And here we are all these years later.
That's pretty wild. As you were talking, I remember the first, I think it was probably after you had that second conversation with Tim, the first memory I have of you was Tim sent me a picture, and I'm pretty sure that was my kayak that you were in when you were, and you were going through the doorway of Jared's house that had flooded.
Yeah.
And you were, I think you were trying to keep from hitting your head on the door frame at the top because that's how high the water was inside the house. And I just remember Tim saying, you got to meet Trey. I already knew Jared, and Jared's an incredible guy. And he's like, you got to meet Trey. He's Jared's relative, and he's already in the business. And I've just been really impressed with him. He just seems like he's a really natural leader, natural broker. And so, yeah, that was pretty crazy that Hurricane Harvey was actually kind of used to bring all of us together.
Yeah, it really is interesting to think back as like that sort of being the genesis for it all, interestingly enough. And then, as I said, in 2019, I had kind of made up my mind that I was ready to make a change with where I was at from a brokerage standpoint. And we started having those conversations. And I think how I ended up at DMRE's such a blessing, just from in 2019, already having talked to you guys, already having decided that I was going to make a change. My brother passed away, and that was obviously very challenging for me. But what was really cool about the whole situation is that you guys remained open to the conversation. You didn't press me on, hey, we've got to find somebody right now to start Dallas. Like, we're here when you're ready to talk about it. And so that was just one of those things that always sticks with you and in how people handle those situations. And so coming off of that, knowing I had made up my mind, I'm ready to make a change, and ultimately was just so thankful for the way that you guys handled that situation. It really made me think very highly of you guys in character. And that's something we always talk about when we're hiring, is we hire for character first. And so just to see how that played out has always stuck with me, and I'm always thankful for that in our relationship.
Well, I know that you've mentioned that before, and I think for us, especially having worked with both of my brothers now, and family is so important to us, that we always say with any interview that it's much more about the person than it is the timing. So we're always looking for the right people. They're the right fit, like you said, with strong character to join the team. And we knew that we knew you're the right fit. We were just hoping that you were still going to decide to want to come over. It was a big change for you to leave. You had built through a really challenging path. You had built a good business at Marcus Millichap, and in a situation where it's hard a lot of times to make it as far as you had there. So you did really well there, and we were excited for you to come start our North Texas office for us. And so I think that when you did come back and say that you were ready, I still remember that was just late 2019, I guess late summer.
Yep.
And I was up here with Trip and Ryan, and you still, I think you had made up your mind, but we didn't necessarily know. You kind of played poker with us a little bit because you wanted to meet in Fort Worth at a restaurant down there. And, I can't remember if you brought the offer letter, right? Because I don't think that I brought the offer letter. Yeah. Okay. So maybe you remember what happened there, but that was kind of a funny story.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. So like, I guess just to summarize, obviously spent 5 years at Marcus and Millichap, learned a lot about brokerage, didn't know a single thing about commercial real estate when I got that opportunity, and super thankful for my time there. There was a lot of people that I really respect and care about that worked there. And so it was not an easy decision to make. And so obviously once we kind of got re-engaged, I said, all right, next step, I need to come down and meet with you guys in Houston. And so it's funny because I don't know that I've ever told you this, but I knew basically when I left the office that day that I was going to come work for you guys. And I think it was probably about another 30 or 45 days later that I actually accepted. But
that sounds about right.
Yeah. And so, we met up in Fort Worth, obviously signed it, and then off to the races. And so kind of getting back into the thick of it here with the business side of things, I came on in late 2019, really had a lot to learn from the land standpoint. I'd worked on land, but that was not my forte. It was investment sales on the apartment side. And so the last few months of 2019, we were just meeting with as many developers as we could, learning where they were looking, trying to get up to speed on the land market here in Dallas so we could be competitive. And finally in January, February of 2020, I actually started making some strides. I remember we got Forum Drive signed up with DHI in Grand Prairie, big 70-acre mixed-use site. And that was like the first week of March. And we had a few urban deals that we were working on with Hines that looked like they were pretty close. And so there was just all this momentum coming. And obviously COVID happens. And it was really interesting because, no one was really sure what was going on. No one was saying, hey, deal's off, whatever. It was a lot of like, hey, let's put this on hold for 2 weeks or 4 weeks and try to figure out what's going on with the world, which is really interesting. But what happened in COVID for us is what is really special and a big part of our history here, both for DMRE, but in our office particularly, is that going into April and May of 2020, being in the midst of COVID, working from home, that's when ultimately, when I started, the plan was we were always going to grow a team in Dallas. We were probably going to open an office in Dallas a couple years down the road. And that all just dramatically sped up because the market got put on hold. But what happened was we kept working, we kept grinding, and made the decision of adopting the team mindset. You obviously made the very hard decision to switch from working on Houston to working on Dallas. And, there was a lot of people that really took COVID as like, nothing's happening, nothing's going on. I'm going to hang out, I'm going to golf, whatever. And we were grinding. Mm-hmm. I mean, we kind of came up with the vision of where we wanted to be. And we used that opportunity to really get ahead of the market because going into COVID, there were a lot of developers. I remember Sean Morgan at Alliance telling us like, you guys are finding the right sites. You're just a couple weeks behind the rest of the market. Like you're going to get there. And, we used COVID as the opportunity to dig in, map everything up, learn about where all the sites were that we had been, not working on the last couple of years because we weren't up here. Right. And so that opportunity in and of itself was really what catapulted our business. And I think COVID, like any adversity in life, you can take it one of two ways. And we decided just to take it head on, really charge at it. Mm-hmm. And I remember, just that year, how much growth we had and a lot of working late, like, 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, still working. And we spent a lot of time business planning of what we wanted the future to look like in Dallas. And so that's always going to be an interesting part of history, right? But for us, it's like just such a special time to think about. Like that's when things really took off for us and basically went into COVID with no deals under contract. And we ended 2020 with, I think, around 30 deals in title. And so just the growth that we had during that year was really incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing to think back on that and to think about, we kind of went through our own mini version of the great financial crisis here in Dallas. But when I think back on those times, I was in Houston for most of 2020 and then officially moved in January of 21 and was even working Houston most of 2020. But when I made that decision, I would come up here, I think it was about once a week or once every other week. Mm-hmm. You had been doing the Dallas or Fort Worth to Houston commute. Yeah. And you had been working a couple days in the office in Houston before that, before COVID, to get used to the culture. Well, I started coming up and doing these long day drives with my brother John or with Kenneth. Yep. We would come up and we would pick a market like Flower Mound or Salina and we would drive. Yeah. And it was really good for me because I had only been to Dallas a handful of times before that. And so I really needed to learn the market and be on the ground. I remember meeting at your house in Fort Worth and it was just the COVID days. It was like you had a beard that was like the biggest beard that I had ever seen, and it was just funny because, when we had all that time, we really chose that we were going to dedicate the time to build the foundation. Yeah. And even though we weren't closing any deals and we weren't even putting a whole lot under contract at that point, because most of our clients were saying, we already have the deals we have. We're trying to figure those out. I'm not trying to do new deals. And the only really very active asset class during a lot of those months was build to rent, which was in its infancy, which was challenging because most of the sites we offered on, you had to go rezone. And so there's just a lot of unknowns. But I think that just belief that we had that we're going to build the foundation and we're going to have a long-term mindset. And you really embrace that, the belief that if we can build this foundation, we can get to where we want to get to. And so to think that we started in late 19 at a really difficult time, we didn't close any deals in 2020, which is difficult to survive, obviously, because you need to close deals to make money. And then in 2021, we started closing deals in the spring, and then we really just started building that pipeline, like you said. And then we went from we were behind to now we're not behind anymore, and we're doing just a ton of volume.
Right. Yeah, it was pretty incredible. I mean, it was obviously, like I said, COVID could have been the tipping point one way or another, but we really believed in what we were doing and believed that we were going to be successful up here. And so it wasn't really a surprise when we got to the end of the year and into 2021 that we were starting to have success because we believed in what we were doing. And the goal was always, let's build the foundation, focus on the process, do things the right way. You know, we're super competitive. We want to go do as
Mhm.
many deals as possible. It's not about like, I want to get to this target number. It's that, you know, we want to dominate. Right. And so we just leaned into that. And as you mentioned, yeah, we went into 2021 with a good pipeline, but what was really incredible is like start of 2021, we really started to grow our team. So I think by the summer of 2021, we got to around 7 or 8 people in the office. Ryan had joined us
Mhm.
from Cushman, which was a huge step for our office. And ultimately, by the end of 2021, we had over 100 deals
Incredible.
in
Yeah.
under contract. And so to go from basically not having an office, not having a team to less than 2 years later having over 100 deals under contract was really special and definitely like speaks volumes to how we work, because without the process, like we would have never gotten there. And then the trickle down effect from that obviously was basically from spring of 2021 to summer of 2022, we closed over 50 deals as a team. And that
Mhm.
was really only with like 4 or 5 people doing deals. It wasn't a big, robust team like we have now with 17 people. So that was pretty incredible, just when you think back on the metrics of how that all came together.
Yeah, it says a lot. I think we talk about humble, hungry, smart.
Hmm.
And when I think about leadership qualities, like I said, when Tim first told me you need to meet Trey, because I think he's a DMRE guy, he's the guy that we want. I've gotten to just experience that through a lot of just change. Because when we hired you and brought you on to run this market, you were living in Fort Worth. I
Yeah.
remember you asked me, like, what's the plan on Dallas? I love, because you were like, I love Fort Worth. I went to TCU. I've been here for a decade. Like, I love it. And, I told you, "Yeah, like, probably down the road, maybe." Like,
Yeah.
I know we were kicking around, like, maybe we could have 2 offices, 1 in Fort Worth, 1 in Dallas, but I wasn't even on my radar to move up here.
Yeah.
So I remember when I made the call and we started talking about it, and it was like, "I think we need to move to Dallas."
Yep.
You really embraced that, and it was you put the team first and just, like, the success first over just what you personally wanted to do, and you've done that a number of times. I know when we started in Dallas, we were at Common Desk.
Yeah.
So we went from that to physical office space, and you were always just willing to take the steps necessary. And it meant a lot of change, a lot of
Right.
interviewing, learning how to interview, learning how to hire. How do we find humble, hungry, smart teammates to work with us? There's all kinds of growing pains when you grow from a one person shop to a 17-person
Yeah.
shop. And, even I think one of the biggest ways, and I know you didn't mention this, but in early 2020, when I called and said, okay, this is the new direction. So Tim
Mhm.
and David and I had done a lot of planning. Market was really difficult because of COVID. It was really difficult in Houston, which was, where primarily almost all of our production was coming from. And that's how we were able to survive when we didn't do any deals in 2020
Right.
in Dallas, because we did do deals in Houston. But I called and said, hey, Trey, like, this is the direction. I'm going to move up to DFW, at some point in the next 6 to 9 months. And we said, to do that, though, we're going to have to change your structure, your compensation structure, because that wasn't really planned, that one of the partners was going to move up. And so we're
Yeah.
going to have to make room, and we're going to really speed up, the growth
Yep.
of this whole thing. So instead of it being you building it out long term, it's going to be me and you building it out long term. And I don't remember, you never really probably said what you were necessarily thinking, but you acted like you just completely took it in stride. From what I remember, it
Yeah.
was like, if that's what you guys think is the right decision, it makes sense to me. And this is paraphrasing what I remember, but it was like onward,
Yeah.
and let's go get it done. But that's huge, because I think obviously compensation hits as close to home as it can hit in the business. But you just had a longer term mindset of where we were going.
Yeah.
And if you didn't have that attitude, I just don't think there's any way that today, just a couple of years later, we would be sitting here talking about, where we've been able to get to.
Totally. Well, and I think that it's always an interesting conversation, right? It's part of why we're able to get to the point where we are today, is just being able to have those honest conversations with each other without true animosity or anything like that. Anytime you talk about, changing structures or anything like that, obviously that's a sensitive conversation. But, at that point, I'd been working up here by myself for at least 6 months. And so the idea of having a team, having more people and really speeding up where we were trying to get to was awesome. It's like when I came on board, we were talking about having an office here, what, like 3 years down the line, something like
Mhm.
that. And just as I said, all of that got ramped way up, and it's been incredible to have you up here. And we work on a ton of deals together, and so it's a lot more fun when you get to do it with other people than
Yeah.
just be doing it by yourself. Like, as cool as that would be.
Yeah, no, that's the same way I feel. I mean, it was hard to leave Houston, but it's so much fun. I loved the challenge of what we've gotten to build together up here.
Mm-hmm.
And in Houston, I mean, they're growing and they're continuing to, meet challenges and overcome those challenges too. But
Right.
but doing it the way that we've gotten to do it up here, taking a really good recipe and a really good process that we've developed at Houston, but then getting to apply it in a new market
Yeah.
and kind of answer the question like, can we do it?
Yeah.
Can we be successful? And we're just so blessed that we have clients that we worked with in Houston. We either work with the same clients up here or they introduced us to their counterparts up here. And so are there any deals that come to mind for you, or just going from survival mode, complete survival mode in COVID when we were building the foundation to when the market got so hot in 2021, and land prices went crazy. The timing on deals was really fast. It was kind of like everything that was slow in COVID, then it became the opposite. And I remember you did a bunch of deals in that time, and some really fast deals and some big deals. So any of those that stand out as kind of those first big deals in your mind from DMRE?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, a big part of it was 2021 was just more change, right? Like we set up shop here in Dallas. We formally opened the office here in Dallas. I moved to Dallas with my wife at the time, my fiance Nicole,
Mm-hmm.
and so that was a decision that wasn't just me picking up and moving. Like, that was an impactful decision for our family and our future. But then once we got into the meat of 2021, the first deal that we closed up here in Dallas was actually with Tranimal Crow Residential.
Yeah, that's right.
And so when you're talking about building out a new opportunity, and we always talk about how fortunate we are with some of the clients we have, and that, groups like TCR and Matt Ensler and his team, like they take our phone call and want to work with us on land opportunities. That's not lost on us. And so it was always pretty special that TCR was like the first closing that we had in Dallas. So that one was really cool. I think the other one that always stands out from 2021 was the Zion deal in Garland. I think that was really like hey, we haven't just shown up, like we're here to stay kind of moment, because there was that family interviewed 5 brokers to take that property out to market. And so we competed against a lot of people to win that listing. I can't, obviously, whenever you win that type of an opportunity, like, it's incredible in and of itself. But then within 2 weeks of marketing, we got 30 offers, and we were literally having to tell people, like, unless you're above asking price, like, do not offer. And I still remember, I mean, it was a rezone, and people were offering like $100,000 non-refundable day one on a rezone site. And so that deal always sticks out to me from 21, just from just all of it kind of coming together at once. And so that's a deal I know that the guys here in the office have probably heard us talk about Zion Road at nauseum, and obviously JLB ended up getting that deal done, which is exciting. But that one really always stands out from 2021. And there were a lot of other special deals that year as well. I remember Ryan closing the industrial deal up in Frisco, which was a massive deal. And I still I don't know if we've ever even worked on another industrial deal in Frisco since. I know there's been some stuff up there, but like we've tried. There's not. But that one was pretty incredible. So there was a few out there. Curious if any stick out for you.
Well, I'll never forget that one of the first deals that we closed up here, we didn't get paid on because because the other broker decided that he was just going to cut us out of the deal unless we sued him, and that was a really crazy situation. We could do an episode on, unfortunately, being mistreated at times in the business, but that, I remember it was March Madness. We were going to go as a team and celebrate the deal that closed. And I remember being on the phone with the attorneys the entire time we were all together, because the title company just sent him the full 6% instead of splitting it like it was supposed to be split in the contract. And then we were never able to get that back. And so that's a kind of a sad moment in just our startup. But at the same time, I remember the way you responded and Ryan responded to that, and we are all just moved forward, and we decided like that, we're not going to let that bother us. We're going to go do a ton of deals. And that's what we did.
Yeah.
So
that one was definitely memorable for the wrong reasons, but
there's one I remember though, that it was one of the fastest deals we'd ever done that you did up near the Texas Motor Speedway.
Yeah.
With the Rangewater guys.
Yeah, that's right. That was 2 phases, one phase of multifamily and then a phase of townhome for rent. And gosh, they closed on that in about 45 days, which was crazy. It's a lot more common, those deals. Like right now, we're signing those same type deals up with probably 9-month type timeframes right now, maybe 6 to 12 months as a broad stroke. But I think that was really fast. The other one from 2021 that stands out was the 1385 and Fish Trap deal that we did with Alliance. Obviously, as a company, we've done over 50 deals with Alliance in our history, which is really cool. But it was awesome to, that was a goal that we had, was we're going to come up and, we wanted to do a lot of Alliance's land deals up here. And it was great to just plant that flag and get things rolling with them.
Yeah, that was a really unique opportunity in a great area in the ETJ. That was definitely a special project. And you've done you've done a great job of finding just really unique opportunities where you're combining a great location with a unique either entitlement or ETJ or zoning situation.
Yeah.
And one other that really sticks out in 2021, because things obviously changed in 2022. It's funny how short-lived all this was, but I remember at the end of 2021, I think I was probably already on Christmas vacation, but we had a deal that we closed in 14 days from signing the contract to actually closing, which I don't even know how you close that fast.
No.
I obviously, I guess it's got to be cash because that's such a fast closing, but that's how crazy the market got in 2021. And so you made the comment earlier, we kind of going into COVID, we had like 1 deal under contract, then we had 30 under contract.
Yeah.
And then at the end of 2021, how many did you say we had?
Over 100.
Yeah.
And the progression of our team at that time was, 2020, we entered 2021 with 4 people on our team. I think by the summer we had doubled. We all moved to Dallas. You moved to Dallas. John moved to Dallas. I moved to Dallas, which, it's so interesting just from that progression. But yeah, I got married in 2021. So Nicole and I actually went on our honeymoon. I remember this very well. We went on our honeymoon in December of 2021 over Christmas. And that was the year, part of why we closed so many deals that year was because everyone was afraid that capital gains tax were going to go up. So we had a lot of deals that had to close by December 31st or they weren't going to happen. And so I specifically remember being on our honeymoon and we were closing almost a deal a day. I mean, it was truly like unbelievable, just how that was all coming together, and getting to enjoy that from the beach was pretty special.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because, we cover Dallas Fort Worth as an entire market, right? But the reason we set up shop here in Dallas is, I love Fort Worth. I'm spent a decade of my life there, but the way our business is set up is that like 95% of the developers that we work with, especially with institutional backing, they're all based here in Dallas. And so even when I was living in Fort Worth, if I had a meeting with a developer, I was always driving to Dallas. And so that's why I think part of why it was so easy to just make the switch, and in that, we were always over here all the time. And so it wasn't really a whole lot of thought of where the office needed to be. And it was just really cool to see all that come together.
Yeah, you've had to replace 2 cars because of the commute.
Yeah, exactly.
that you had from Fort Worth. So then in 2022, we again, we were growing the team. We moved into our new office space that we have over here. I remember one of our competitors had been saying they don't even have an office space. I guess that was like a negative against us because
anything to slow us down,
because we were at Common Desk, which I'll say I had never been in a co-working space before Common Desk, and I loved it.
Yeah, it was awesome.
It was so fun. I mean, now we all have our own offices. We have more space than we need, although we're growing, so we'll probably be out of space soon. But the days when we started at Common Desk and there were 4 of us in one office, technically it was like a 6 or 8 person office, but it was like maybe the size of 2 offices.
Right.
But those days were so much fun because I just think the collaboration of that open concept, it was a lot of fun. So there's a lot of fond memories of back when we were just really just trying to get deals going and had our eyes set on where we are now, but just getting to experience that together. And like you said, John also decided to move from Houston to come up here to Dallas.
Right.
And so we've had just a lot of great people join the team. We've had people that, have moved to other offices from our office.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we take a lot of pride in the way we hire, looking for humble, hungry, smart, and then really challenging the people that we hire. So we've had some incredible people that have promoted quickly. And then of course we've had some people we've had to let go over time too, just because they weren't embodying that humble, hungry, smart. And so I think what is easy to take for granted for me is just how aligned we are, even though you and I have very different skill sets.
Yeah.
And really just strengths. Like when we take these different assessments, like StrengthsFinder, Working Genius, we have these complementary strengths.
Right.
But we think very similarly about long term. We're both really competitive. We both really believe in excellence and doing it the right way. A lot of it's probably because our background, what we were taught like growing up was the importance of hard work, taking responsibility, and also just in the business. When we got into the business, we both started at much larger organizations where you're seeing people get fired all the time. And you see how hard it is to get in there in the first place.
Yeah.
And so I just think that's something that's easy to take for granted, but pretty special that we share this alignment. And we've been fortunate to bring on others that share that same alignment and that same long-term view. So maybe why don't we hit a little bit of where we are now and where we're trying to go and just some of the things we're excited about.
Yeah, for sure. And I do think it's awesome just how close we are and that we do share those same values. And when I would say the majority of the time when we're trying to make a decision on behalf of the team and for the betterment of the team, it's always very easy to make those decisions together because we're in such alignment all the time, which is pretty special to have in a partner and not taken for granted. Like you said, I think that one thing that's really always stands out to me is we talk about humble, hungry, smart. That's our motto. That's something that we don't just kind of tuck away. Like we bring it up all the time. We're always scoring people in interviews based off of humble, hungry, smart. We're always bringing it up when we're doing quarterly and annual reviews with people on the team. And so I think, where we're at today, obviously, is a testament to that and following the process and just continuing to grind. I think without hard work and just embodying that, we wouldn't be where we're at today. And so I think one thing you always talk about is like, I want to outwork everybody on the team. And it's awesome just to have leadership with that mindset of, we're going to be the hardest working people on the team. And so I think looking back and into today, the last 2 years, 2020, late 2022, all of 2023, and then 2024, very challenging markets, right? Those were definitely interest rate hikes, rent prices dropped, construction prices held firm, like just very hard to get deals done. We've been fortunate that single family's been really strong as a product type, but there was a lot of deals that blew up. I remember in late 22, it's kind of like the opposite story of what we were talking about in 21 is there was a time where it felt like we were losing deals by the hour.
Yeah.
And so anyway, just focus on, we had a long-term vision for the office. We did a lot of business planning. We've continued to embody that vision of where we want to get over the next handful of years. And part of that is finding the right people and people that we believe in. And so we make the decision of when we're hiring, we're not looking for somebody who can just do the job and come in and work for, maybe it works out for a year, maybe it doesn't, whatever. Like we take the mindset of, is this person humble, hungry, smart? And we're going to invest in them. And we really believe that most people don't find their stride in commercial real estate and in brokerage until probably at least like their mid-20s after they've been in the business for a few years. It takes a lot to get deals done, especially on the land side when transactions take so much longer, that it's just not common that, people come in and close deals in their first year. And so we really take the mindset of we're going to pick people who we believe have a long-term mindset, think about the team first like we do, and ultimately invest in them to say, hey, that, we want you here on the team long term, not just for 1 or 2 years, but for a decade. And so because of that, we interview a lot of people, and we're very selective, but we've been fortunate in that we've been pretty sticky with like the people that we've hired. It's a lot of people we've been able to keep the team together. And it's just really exciting when we started this year, to come in with 17 people. And just sometimes I like walk in and I kind of have to pinch myself of like, gosh, there's a lot of people in here versus where we were just a very short time ago.
Yeah, it's incredible. I think that something we worked really hard on in the midst of all this growth has been, how do you incentivize a growing team?
Right.
Because what we didn't want to get to was the point of, we can figure out a good way for you and me to work together, and maybe we can add 2 more people, but how do you have a really successful team all working together and all motivated together?
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember in 2023, really for probably 6 months, you and I spent a lot of time with Brad, and we really worked on what we call the comp model, and how we would come up with a proprietary way that we look at when a deal closes, how you compensate across the entire team.
Right.
So that there's, rewarding the guy or girl that did the deal, because they need to be rewarded at a higher degree. But then there's also rewarding all of the work and all of the sharing and all of the teamwork that led to that deal happening. Because we have a belief that we're going to be better as a team. And what's really neat about that is it's proven itself.
Right.
So there's no other brokerage firm that I know of that has increased their production each year from 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024. And we're set to do that in 2025. I'm sure they're out there, but I know the big ones, they aren't on that kind of a trajectory. The market's been difficult.
Right.
And it isn't because of you or me, it's because of the team.
Yeah.
And it is because of our willingness to work and share as a team.
Yeah.
And so I think what's neat about that, and part of what you're saying is, because when we hire, young analysts, we pay a salary to start, we commit our skin in the game to not only invest in them, but also to invest in them.
Right.
And actually allow them to survive. And we've talked about this. We don't want you right out of college, you're figuring out how to wake up in the morning and get to work, be worried about, can I eat tomorrow because I'm 100% commission?
Right.
Am I going to get lucky into a deal, or am I going to get out of the business? And so we're very selective who we hire.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't hire, very many people that we interview. But when we interview you, we're going to pay you a salary, and we're going to spend real money to also invest in you, so that you can be successful, because it just takes time, like you said. And those that have been willing to say, I'm going to come and I'm going to learn, and I'm going to get to be in this really fast-paced environment.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, that's where we've had incredible growth. I always talk about Trip, and he's already been on the podcast, going from an analyst to a partner. But we have other guys that are on that exact same path, where they've gone from analyst to senior director, or even analyst to partner. So that's really exciting too. I think we love seeing our team grow and do better together. And then we also just love seeing individuals grow in leadership too.
Yeah. It really is the exciting part of the business. Is I always think of it as like, you and I, even though we're out trying to do deals every day, and we're doing all these things behind the scene for the growth of the team, for the growth of the office. It's not about the next deal. It's not about just any one deal. It's about the greater good of the team and the team being successful. And so there's a lot of times in which, we have to make hard decisions, but, ultimately it's to grow the team. And so there's a lot of different ways in which we do that. But, Trip was on a few episodes ago, and he was talking about the process, the process. And that's really it. And so, like, as we're coming back into a stronger market, starting 2025, like, things are post-election, things were kind of starting to have a buzz in the air again. People were getting excited. It's just having the right team in place to now, when the market comes back really strong, we've got all the right people to really go attack that. And it's just going to require, continuing to have that humble, hungry, smart mindset, and having the, just the willingness to grind, I think, more than anything, because ultimately things start moving faster, we've got to be out in front of it. And that's what we plan to do.
Yeah. And I think a big priority that we've talked about for 2025 is we're raising up another level of leadership in our office. And so we really believe in a lot of the younger guys on the team and just their leadership abilities. And we've been challenging them to step up. And so that's I think going to be really fun as we move from the end of this first quarter into later in the year. because that's going to be a way that we can continue to really serve our clients well and grow as a team. We want to be the best when it comes to land. And when you think about, land in the state of Texas, you want to hire somebody to sell your property, that you want to think about DMRE.
Right.
And that's whether it's industrial, whether it's single family, whether it's multifamily, whether it's retail, investment land, any type of land that, we get the call, and then we'll be honest. If it's not the type of property that we would work on for some reason, then we're going to be honest about that. But it's fun to get to do this together. Is there anything else that you want to say as we kind of wrap up here?
I guess I would just say again, just always, you and I always talk about how cool it was, just the way in which my tenure at DMRE came about, and just the journey together, and just always appreciate our work together, and appreciate everyone on our team, and just everyone that embodies the same mindset for us to be successful.
Yeah, that's great. There's nothing like it when you find, individuals that you can go every day side by side, enjoy being with them, and go be successful together.
Yeah.
It's a really special thing. And so getting to share that with you and Tim and David and Tripp and others on our team, it's pretty special.
Yeah.
So, well, thanks, Trey, for joining today. Great for you to be on the podcast, for the audience to get to know you. And I know you're going to be on many other episodes here, but just a fun introductory episode today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to our podcast today. If you have questions about land you own in Texas, send us an email at texaslandguys@dmre.com and follow us on LinkedIn to stay updated.